Welcome to another episode of Morning Meds, FamilyFamily.com's devotional spotter for meals to meditate on Yahweh's word for good success. We're grateful for your attention today as we continue on our march to the scriptures, and we know we're doing this so our families can have good success according to Joshua 1 verse 8. Today we're on the title of Sharing Generously, and this is from 1 Timothy 5 verses 11 to 19. We're on the topic of love. And yesterday, just a quick recap for those who did not, who are just jumping in here. A quick recap of yesterday, we looked at Psalm 26 on the title Living Blamelessly, on this general churchian issue of righteousness, which is essentially living blamelessly. Why do we live blamelessly? Because Yahweh loves us. And through faith in Jesus, he equips us to make the right choices in the temptation. David says that God's love is always before his eyes when he makes choices. And did he mess up? Yes. And that's part of the reason why he was so broken, because he knows that he did not represent the love of God well when he makes bad choices. Those who make right choices show the love of God. Today, we're on sharing generously, and we're looking at this from 1 Timothy 5, verses 11 to 19. So what's Paul trying to tell Timothy to do here? He says, do not include younger widows. Sorry, this is the Good News Translation, and then afterwards we'll look at the New Century Translation. But do not include, 1 Timothy 5, 11 to 19, do not include younger widows in the list, because when their desires make them want to marry, they turn away from Christ, and so become guilty of breaking their earlier promise to him. They also learn to waste their time in going around from house to house. But even worse, they learn to be gossips and busybodies, talking of things they should not. So I would prefer that the younger widows get married, have children, and take care of their homes, so as to give our enemies no chance of speaking evil of us. For some widows have already turned away to follow Satan. But if any Christian woman has widows in her family, she must take care of them and not put the burden on the church, so that it may take care of the widows who are all alone. Excuse me. The elders who do good work as leaders should be considered worthy of receiving double pay, especially those who work hard at preaching and teaching. For the scripture says, do not muzzle an ox when you are using it to thresh corn, and workers should be given their pay. Verse 19 says, do not listen to an accusation against an elder unless it is brought by 2 or more witnesses. And he continues. The New Century says, do not put younger widows on that list. After they give themselves to Christ, they are pulled away from him by their physical desires, and then they want to marry again. They will be judged for not doing what they first promised to do. Besides that, they learn to waste their time going from house to house. And they not only waste their time, but also begin to gossip and busy themselves with other people's lives, saying things they should not say. So I want the younger widows to marry, have children, and manage their homes. Then no enemy will have any reason to criticize them, for some have already turned away to follow Satan. If any woman who is a believer has widows in her family, she should take care of them herself. The church should not have to take care of them. Then it will be able to take care of those who are truly widows. The elders who lead the church well should receive double honor, especially those who work hard by speaking and teaching. Because the scripture says, when an ox is working in the grain, do not cover its mouth to keep it from eating, and a worker should be given his pay. Verse 19. Do not listen to someone who accuses an elder without 2 or 3 witnesses. So here, Paul is teaching Timothy. Timothy is a young pastor who I believe is left in Ephesus, who is an ancient town. They used to worship the goddess Diana. It's a very interesting town. And in the day, I believe it's in Greece somewhere. And Paul here is cheering Timothy to encourage the church he is helping to be generous to 2 main types of people: the widows and the elders that rule well. The key verse 16 to 17, the King James Version says, "If any man or woman has widows, let them relieve them, and let not the church be charged, that it may relieve them that are widows indeed. Let the elders that rule well, be counted worthy of double honor, especially those who labor in the word and doctrine." So, why are we studying this as males in our homes, or homes as Christian males? Your home is your church, in a sense. Your home, your family unit, is a place where you minister to each other and to your community to be like Jesus Christ. That is, and as our pastor says, your family is the smallest cell group in the church. So your family, you are like a pastor or a leader, someone who is responsible for the discipling, the long-term Christian care of your family members. And Timothy was a pastor, a young pastor, and he's being mentored by Paul in terms of how we should take care of these people in Ephesus. You are also, and then this is a model for us to mentor our family units as to how we should handle widows and how we should handle elders, people that are senior to us, especially, and Paul goes through a lot of guidelines about what kind of widow and what kind of elder you are to support. But the fact is that our families are to be places where we search in our community, or if you're part of a corporate church, you look in that church. Is there someone who has lost their partner, their spouse? It says widows, but it also applies to widowers, people who have lost their marriage partner. Not lost, we know where they are if they're Christians. People whose marriage partner have died or have dropped flesh, as we say. And we're also supposed to be looking for elders, people who are older that rule well, people that teach the word, people that minister. I recall a lady in Jamaica where we're from named Mother Ruby Sullivan, and she, up to her death, she was cooking food for old people, for the elderly people in the community. I recall Sister Aina, people like that who in depressed communities, there are so many names, and I started calling a few names. So there are so many people in our communities that we see the communities struggle to take care of some of these people, and that should and cannot be so. That should and can be another way. If you have families, we want to train our families to look out for people who work hard in the community to show the love of God, widows and elders, and we want to take care of them financially. We want to, if they have medical bills, we want to see how we can contribute to those bills. If they have grocery bills, we want to see how we can contribute. And apart from bills, you can look at, if you're someone who has a gardening company, can you regularly cut their lawn? If they have, if they are somebody who wants company, can you volunteer to read a book for them, etc. Now, Paul was talking here specifically of a list of people who should be given financial support in the church. So financial support is very important for the elderly, for the widows, and the people who teach in the word. So we want to train our families to look out for vulnerable people, and Paul gives you guidelines as to what kind of vulnerable people to look for, so that we're not frivolous with the resources of our family, with the resources of our church. We want to look for people. You don't want to look for young widows. Let's say somebody lost their husband, they're 30 years old. They can get married again. They can take care of themselves. Paul was warning Timothy, If you take care of young widows, they won't have any incentive to have a family again sometimes. They won't have any incentive to live a righteous life. They will go around and they will become involved in gossip, etc. And then they might fall away from the faith because of the gossiping and because they have time on their hands. Meanwhile, if they were working hard, taking care of a family, they would have less time to get themselves in trouble. So, of course, Paul wants us to take care, and this is not just Paul. Jesus wants us to take care of widows and orphans, but to be responsible at the same time in doing so. Widows and elders, and orphans as well. So the main thing for today, let's train our families, mentor our families to financially support the vulnerable widows and the elders that are teaching the doctrine of Jesus Christ. And let us do this in a way, I'll add this, Paul didn't really say this, but let us do this without any kind of invoice, without looking for any recognition.